Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm Lauren Feldman, your host. Today, we have part one of a special taping before a live audience at the offices of Blink UX in Seattle on February 13th. You'll hear 4 of our 5 regular guests go a little deeper into the challenges they've faced, including how they got started in business and what's gone wrong at times when they've pumped a little too hard on the gas. In part 2, which we'll publish next week, we talk to Brian Canlis, co-owner of the renowned Seattle restaurant Canlis. But first, here's my conversation with Karen, Jay, Dana, and Laura. Enjoy. I am Lauren Feldman, host of the 21 Hats podcast. We pride ourselves on having conversations that you don't often hear in public. We try to get beneath the surface, not just talk about the spin, the PR. We talk about what it really takes to run a business. And our 5 regulars have been amazingly candid, willing to share, talk about what actually works and what actually doesn't work. And we're going to put them on the spot tonight and have them prove to you just how candid they can be. Karen, just tell us very quickly what the business does and give us some sense of the size, employees, range of revenues.
Sure. Hi, everybody. We're a user experience consulting firm. We've been around for 20 years. We started in 2000 with just Kelly and I. So we, in the first year, we doubled in size and we were 4 people. And those 2 people are actually still with the company, which is pretty awesome. And now we're about 130, but we're 20 years in, about 30 million in revenue. We've got 5 offices. Seattle's the headquarters. We are in Austin, Boston, San Diego, and San Francisco as well. The kind of work we consult with our clients is complex, largely digital products. And so anything where it's not an obvious interaction. So a lot of back-end big enterprise systems we work on, and we'll design everything from the workflow, the design, the interface, all the way through, in some cases, the actual implementation. Everything we do is based on research. So we call ourselves a research and design firm.
Laura?
Lauren.
Tell us about your company.
Hi, my name's Laura, and I'm an alcoholic. My name is Laura. I started a yarn shop about 18 years ago. I was actually a software engineer in San Francisco during the whole .com boom, 97, 98, 99, and then moved to Lake Tahoe to ski and mountain bike and play, and decided that I could make a living through a yarn shop and then building a website. So my husband was also a software engineer. Anyway, so we started this little yarn shop, started a website, and it just grew and has grown for now 18 years. We have made a couple of acquisitions. It sounds really fancy, but we've taken over a couple of brands to expand from just retail. I'm sure, how many of you guys have read Retail Seismic Shift that came out last year? Seriously, like, it's a page turner, like, really good. You should totally read it. Anyway, in August of 2016, retail took a really big dip for multiple reasons, defragmentation, all these kinds of things. I wrote myself a little research paper that I can share with you if you'd like. But we have had to transition, and so have picked up a couple of our suppliers. So now we have about 85 people. 45 of our people are in Reno. Now we have a manufacturing facility in Texas. And then we are doing business in Vietnam and in China as well. So, like, I make these bags, which are available on jimmybeanswool.com, and sell lots of yarn.
You have a brick and mortar store.
We do have a brick and mortar.
The bulk of your sales are online.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. We started the online shop in 2002 to supplement the sales Monday through Thursday, because we lived in a second home community, in Lake Tahoe. So
rough range of revenues?
I don't know. Probably, hopefully 13, 14 million. So a little small compared to fancy pants over here. But the nice part is I can wear whatever I want. You guys have to impress people.
Dana White?
Hello. I'm Dana White, and I am the owner and founder of a chain of walk-in only 7-day-a-week hair salons called Paralee Boyd. I have used lean manufacturing to solve the problems of no appointments and long waits at hair salons. So growing up, I would spend my Saturdays in a hair salon. I was working overseas and, I couldn't do it. I couldn't stay in the salon all day. So in New York, there are places you can walk in and walk out, but they just didn't pay attention to customer service and they weren't really deliberate about their processes. So what I did is I decided to become deliberate about it. So talked to 2 engineering friends of mine and said, I need to make a customer's experience in here as quick, efficient, and as quality as possible. So long and short of it is, I've been open for 7 years. I have 2 locations in metropolitan Detroit, with a vision to go national to solve this problem nationally. And that's it. I'm the small one.
How many employees?
I have 20.
And rough range revenues less than?
$1 million. Yes, less than $1 million.
Jay Goltz?
I started my business right out of college. I've never had a job. And this was 1978. No computers. Imagine that. I got an accounting degree and I had the wisdom and vision of, no, accounting's no good. I'm going to go into the picture frame business. And I can assure you, nobody thought that was a good idea. But I just wanted to make a living. I like picture framing and I hated accounting. So I opened up on a 3rd floor walk-up loft in Chicago, in what is now a very bustling street. My rent was $200 a month. I figured if it didn't work, I'd go get a job, and business took off like crazy. I did $120,000 the first year, then I did $240,000, then I did $480,000, then I did $710,000, then I did $1 million. The average picture frame shop in the United States today does $200,000 a year. So it was quite the phenomenon. And it continued to grow. And then I eventually, after 10 years, opened a furniture store. And then I started an art business. And now I sell wholesale to frame shops around the country. So to summarize the last 41 years, I've got 115 employees. My frame business is about 20 times the size of the average in the United States. It's by far the biggest.
I'm not going to let you get away without telling us how big your business is. Employees?
I got 115 employees.
Rough range revenue?
$20 million.
But that's not all. In the frame shop, you also have I
have a very hot furniture store. We do online business, and so I got like 4 different businesses, and it has its challenges with running 4 different businesses. And the whole technology thing, it's not easy being a retailer today.
Okay, so here's where it gets real. You've heard the basics about what they do. Karen, why don't you go first? Is your business as operating the way you would like it to? Are you satisfied with its performance?
Yes.
And don't pay attention to the fact that there are employees of yours in the audience. They're not really paying attention. They have other things to think about.
Well, the truth is that's all we got. I mean, we are a consulting firm and we are employees. And so paying very careful and special attention to our employees is the only thing that's worth worrying about, really, truthfully. And so, and our employees are interfacing with our clients every day, all day long.
You've talked very openly on the podcast about your attitudes toward growth and your notion that there are a lot of people buying up companies that do the kind of work that you do, and it occurred to you at a certain point, if somebody's going to buy up all those companies, why not you? And you spent a lot of time working to try to bring in the capital that would help you purchase other companies. In the end, that didn't work out the way you expected it to. You've also talked very openly. You took a sabbatical away from here for a couple of months.
Like 2 hours, I'm going to answer that one.
How has that affected your attitude toward the growth of this business? Having been through that experience, sitting here today, what are you thinking are your goals for Blink?
Well, so there's a lot that Lauren just packed in there, but we are in a very fast-paced industry. It's growing like crazy. So if you think about user experience, if you know anything about it, it's on fire, and it's important that we are relevant in that fire. So we need to be a certain size. We need to continue to grow so that we remain the best UX firm out there, so that when the big clients come, there's no question they're going to hire us. That needs to remain true, and that means we have to continually grow with the times, and we have to be up on the latest technology. My co-founder Kelly is focused on innovation so that we know what's the new tech that's coming, how do we bring it into our own practice, how do we advise our clients, how do we make sure that we're using technology, know everything about it. So there's that side of it, that we have to continually be growing and evolving. But in terms of running the actual company, you know, it's hard not to grow, period, for anybody.
There are a lot of businesses that manage to do it.
I think it's harder to not grow, actually, because you have to, you know, the world doesn't stay still around you. So how could you stay still in a world that's constantly changing? I mean, everything's moving.
Maybe that's more true in your industry than some others.
You think?
Could be.
You think maybe?
Jay, have you had trouble not growing?
Yeah.
I grow out as I get older, but I'm not growing up.
You're not growing, and none of us are not growing. And so I can tell you, I mean, my CFO tells me all the time, it's quite difficult to not grow.
You are living in your own Seattle high-tech bubble that you think that everybody's growing and you can't stop it. That isn't even close to true. I mean, there's lots of companies that their markets are deteriorating or changing or feeling influences from other countries. And there's a lot, read the paper every day. Retailers are shrinking. There's lots of companies that are struggling to not only are they not growing, but they're struggling to just stay in business. So, and I'm in retail. It's not easy. All these people with the free shipping and the companies like,
Called Amazon, I think.
no, well, them too, but the Wayfair, they're doing billions of dollars and losing hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. So
Does Jason Home compete with Wayfair?
not much, but enough. I mean, there's plenty of these companies just throwing public money at stuff and they're losing money doing it and it's putting a squeeze on everybody else. So
Yep, we have even that in the yarn industry. Like these guys got $60 million in funding. They're losing. Last year they did $20 million in sales, but they lost $11 million. So most yarn shops are really small. You know, and if you're lucky, maybe you take home $30,000. So it's obviously a lifestyle business. But you take somebody who pulls $20 million out of the market, they can price everything at 40% off or 60% off because they just don't give a shit. Like they're just trying to get customer names and build that customer list so that they can sell it and ride off on their yacht. It really damages things. I mean, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Tell us about your attitude toward growth. You were ahead of your time. When you went online, don't make a face at me like that. You know it's true.
Yeah, but it wasn't on purpose. I mean, we just got really lucky. The timing was really lucky. It was magic.
You figured out how to use YouTube as a learning
Before
and
Bezos
marketing
did,
tool.
I'll say, yes.
And you built a neighborhood yarn shop on the internet. You didn't have any competition back then. You were growing very quickly. And you thought you were going to take over the world at one point. Yeah. What happened?
Well, I still kind of think I'm going to take over the world. Growth-wise, to your point, so we started in 2002. I'm the only employee. I have a little 500 square foot shop. I've got an espresso cart because I've built a website for an espresso manufacturer and he traded me for an espresso cart. Built a website for a yarn manufacturer. They traded me for yarn. So I have, yarn and espresso, and let's just roll the dice. I got a 50-50 chance.
Jimmy Beans wool?
Beans wool. Yeah, wool is for the yarn. And no, we carry other fibers, just in case you ask. But then the online stuff started to kind of take off, and I opened a second location, and none of it was strategic. Maybe there was a little bit of strategic intuition that I didn't realize I had. But the internet business and the world of e-commerce, really started for some of you. Some of you guys probably weren't born yet, but in the year 2005, before Facebook, people started to get more comfortable buying things online. And so then we couldn't help but grow. I mean, it was growth after growth. We really couldn't, so we didn't have to worry about inventory. I didn't have to worry about cash flow. I didn't have to worry about anything because damn, if the money was just coming faster than I could count it. But, so then I start to swim into the growth, if you've ever been rafting or you ski or whatever, and you just kind of let yourself go into it. And then you start to really power into it to see if I can get a little more speed and a little more momentum going. So I started to really push, got myself in some magazines because not many business magazines were writing about knitting at the time. So I thought that it might be I would pitch myself and I'm just like, look, yarn. How many people here know somebody who knits or crochets? It's like almost everybody, right? Which, holy shit, if you can get an article in a magazine, it doesn't matter what genre the magazine's in, you're going to reach, somebody is going to look into, I always wanted to be in Car and Driver because I'm like, the dude has a wife or he's got a mom or at least had a mom at some point biologically. I was really, really pushing, getting in magazines, getting in Forbes, ended up meeting Lauren, being a writer for the New York Times with Jay, and trying to go for, does anybody here want to have their own business? Okay. Well, I don't blame the rest of you because it sucks. most of the time.
You
But
don't mean that.
She's mixing up the AA meeting again with this whole thing. This is the business thing. We're happy being business owners.
it's all a 12-step program. Life is a 12-step program. So I realized that if I started to apply for awards, that I would get some press and get some notice, and maybe I could convince people that I was actually legitimate, even though I didn't feel like it inside. If enough people thought that we had a legitimate business, maybe people would start to buy from us, and they would think we were legitimate. So it's like the emperor's new clothes. So I applied for a bunch of awards, blah, 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 and I got one through Ernst & Young and became part of their Winning Women program with a bunch of really successful women. Swell, the woman who started Swell, the woman who started Spanx, all these people like her. So all these super successful women. So I'm all of a sudden surrounded for a couple years with all these people who are just kicking ass and taking names. And they're pushing grow, just fast growth, grow as big as you can. Keep focusing on having $100 million company. You should be able to have $100 million company. And I'm relatively competitive, I've been told.
You're an athlete.
I have been an athlete before. Right now I'm more of an athlete eater. But I always want to go faster. How can I go faster? So how can I grow bigger? How can I get to 100 million? All right. I can open 50 shops. We can do this. We can do that. And I was so focused on growing that I kind of blew it up. I blew the whole business up.
By
hiring people that we weren't ready to hire for. We were probably doing $5, $6, $7 million in sales. I didn't need a $90,000 a year social media person 10 years ago. I just didn't. But I listened to what other people were telling me. I started to wear dresses. I started to wear heels. I started to try to fit the part, to fit in with what all of these people were telling me I should be. And, really lost my way. That sounds so cliche, but, and I think.
How long ago was that?
About 6 years ago. And so the growth kind of stopped. And I think a big part of it was I quit doing what came naturally to me, and I started doing what I thought I should be doing. So it's that nasty should word.
So the growth stopped as soon as you decided you were going to focus on growth.
Totally. Yep. It absolutely did. And then it all, the shit hits the fan and it all falls apart, and, my dog dies, my mom dies, blah, blah, blah. The truck broke down. All these things happen. And it took us a couple years, and we finally just now in the last probably 18 to 24 months have gotten our shit back together.
But now it's more difficult because of the retail apocalypse. You've got competition.
Yes.
What's your attitude toward growth today?
My attitude toward growth is that I just want to have fun. I would really like to be able to ski again. I'd really like to be able to get on the trails again. I'd like to be creative again. I would like to grow again if I can do it because it's fun, but not for the sake of growth. What has also changed for us in the last 10 years, and Jay probably has experience with this that he can talk about when I'm done talking.
Well, tomorrow, the next day?
Probably. Is 10 years ago, most of our employees were passionate knitters, retired people, college students. Now, almost all of our people, this is their career. It's their full-time job. And so part of the growth, and you and I have talked about this before, you've made some moves this way. Part of the growth has been to keep the people that we love and that are kind of part of our team, to keep them interested and for them to be able to grow and for them to find things that they can learn, to develop new skills. So that's a part of it. Okay, I'm done. Goodbye.
Dana, you said something before about your aspirations. You do have the smallest business of the four businesses here, but in some ways the biggest aspirations. You would like to go national. Tell us, what's your plan? How do you do that? Do you know?
I don't, because the plan has changed, and we've talked about the plan changing. People come to you and say, "Oh, I want you to meet this investor," and I've said, on the podcast, I'm not willing to give up the firstborn that I don't have yet to that investor, so that's not going to happen. Franchising has been an option. I think for me right now, I'm with Laura. I want to have fun. I want to grow slow. I think slow and steady is going to win the race, because, when we're talking about, the growth of a company, and my direct competition is the individual hairstylist, and she cannot see 15 women on Sunday morning standing outside of her salon waiting for her. That's a typical Sunday morning in my salon, right? And so, and then the salons that are big or that are national, your Great Clips, your Supercuts, your Bow Ricks, they're definitely not catering to my market. So I believe the field for me is wide
Tell us
open.
exactly who's the market you cater to?
Well, right now it's African-American women between the ages of 17 and 70, right? Because I felt the pain, and a lot of people just don't know what it has taken for us to get our hair done. And I think products and tools have evolved, but the business model around the hair salon for this market hasn't. So I went ahead, added some math, did some science, and trying to evolve it. So we cannot not grow because there isn't a walk-in only, 7-day a week, lean manufactured hair salon. So the growth and the speed in which it's done is up to me.
Aren't you worried that someone else might come and do it and beat you to it?
You know what? Yeah, I was, until my mentor sat me down and said, you have 7 years on them. They have to start from zero, right? They have to.
It's also a big country.
It's a huge country, and there's plenty of space, right? But, there's McDonald's and Burger King are not suffering, right? And there's room for Five Guys and Burger Fi. But he said even Burger King needed ramp up time. By then, McDonald's was McDonald's. So consider yourself, in your ramp up phase. Yes.
Well, one of the things that, kept getting pounded into me was you got to be afraid. You got to be afraid like somebody else is going to come in and they're going to do this. And I'm sick of it. Like, I'm sick of living in fear.
What's for me is for me. It's already done. What I do, you may be able to do better or maybe not, but you'll never be able to do what I do the way I do it because I'm me. And maybe national isn't for me. Maybe it's regional. And I'll learn that as I grow and get older. But for now, I am extremely passionate about our time and how it's being taken for granted. The kind of anecdote we talked about is, what touched me was a mom came into the salon and she said, my daughter just got a partial scholarship to Purdue on the swim team. And I said, wow, that's amazing. Wow. And she said, because we were able to walk in after practice on Tuesdays and after meets on Saturdays and be in and out in time to go home to have dinner. And that is something that is just not, something that we do en masse. Right. And so the fact that Paralee Boyd is there and she got a partial scholarship to Purdue, that's why I said it's a national solution. It's about hair health, right? It's not just get you in and out, but is it growing and is it getting thicker? And are you able to be versatile with it? Can you go super curly and then decide to go super straight? So again, growth for me is, it's what you want to do until you decide you don't want to do.
Jay, did you ever go through a stage where you thought you were going to take over the world?
In my 20s, I was surprised just because I had a successful business that was doing millions of dollars, which that wasn't the plan. I don't need no stinking plan. You know what that is, right? So 20s, then 30s, I figured, I'm going to take over the world now. Then I hit 40 and I realized, gee, what did you do wrong? You're not worth $200 million. And because I'm not in the computer business, because everything you read about in Forbes is always the computer business or real estate. I wasn't in that. Then I hit my 40s. I figured out by the time I hit 50, I figured out I've done just fine. I'm actually happy now. I don't have this albatross on me. You're not doing enough. You're not growing fast enough. And I realized that success is not about the income. It's about the outcome. And my outcome is way better than most of the people I read about in Forbes. Almost all of them. Their lives are messes. If you read the stories closely, you'll see these aren't happy people. So I figured out for myself that entrepreneurship is about, for me, it's about having control over my destiny. I don't have anybody to answer to. And I have happy employees. My average person's been with me 10 and a half years. And I have 3 good kids that are married with nice daughter-in-laws, and life is good. And I'm trying to put the message out there in the world that, no, you just don't have to become the biggest place ever and grow it. And now if I grow it 5% a year, I'm perfectly happy. And I'm afraid that entrepreneurship now, when people hear the word, they think entrepreneurship means raising money. No, raising money is raising money, and entrepreneurship is starting a business. And there's the outcome.
Were you ever tempted to take investment money?
No. I told you the story when I was written up in Small Giants. I went to the book thing and the book signing, and there was a guy who that was doing a speech about his business, and he was in the boutique hotel business, and it was going well, and he started taking in money, and now he's doing like 5 hotels a year, and I'm sitting in the back thinking, boy, that guy really thinks big. I just don't think that big. And then by the end of his speech, he's telling us how there was the crash, and I'll never forget this. He said, I had a wife call me from one of the investors going, you son of a bitch, you'd better figure out how to fix this. My husband was up all night crying because of you. And I thought, yeah, I don't need to think big like him. I think medium. And I know I'm in a good place. I think medium, like I make a really good living and buy what I want. And I've realized that's not a bad place to be, but you don't hear about that stuff. You just hear about the ones that are going crazy and growing, and lots of them disappear one day. I'm trying to get people to understand that entrepreneurship is about being happy at the end of the day. And there's a lot of unhappy entrepreneurs out there, and that is the ultimate irony. They went in business for themselves, they control their destiny, and they controlled it to where they're miserable because someone else is more successful, or someone's bigger. God forbid someone's bigger than you are, or they got written up in the magazine or something, and it's a little out of whack at the moment. So,
Karen, has your thinking about taking investment capital evolved over time?
Yeah. Well, we tried, and it was difficult because we're a services company. We're not a product company, so we're not going to do a big hockey stick. We're not a startup, so it's hard to fit into the right place to actually get money from a person or a group who we like, and there has to be synergy there. So, after a year and a half, we sort of put it to rest, and now we're focusing on fueling our own growth, which is where we were before. I mean, in 20 years, we've never taken any investment, so it's not like we can't do it. There was just a big opportunity all around us to consolidate the UX market. And rather than having somebody else do it, I wanted us to do it. But, as a lot of people know around here, it's not that easy to pull all that off. And so it became not worth it, because it was causing too much hardship for too many people. I listen to all you guys and I'm thinking, wow, you can serve a lot of people in this country and you can have a lot of happy employees, and you should grow so that you can do that. I mean, that's kind of how I feel. I mean, not only can we serve more clients if we're bigger, but we can have more happy employees. And I think if we can have a great place for people to come to work in more cities, with more client work to do, then wow, that's a pretty good reason to do it. For me, it's not as simple as, and it's certainly not a greedy thing. I made way more money when we were 4 people, and I've never worked so hard in all my life, and I don't want to do it again. And so I always say to Laura, like, get bigger, it's easier, because you can hire really smart people to help you, which you can't afford to do when you're small.
We're going to open this up to questions in a second, but before we do, Laura, could you tell us a little bit about what's working for you in terms of marketing and generating growth? You were ahead of your time on YouTube. That was a while ago. You did really well on Facebook for a while. I know you're focusing on Instagram now. What have you learned? What's working right now?
I've learned that the rules are just constantly changing. It's really, we're whitewater rafting. And the river is just never the same, and you never know how long the rapid's going to be. And so we won a Facebook Global Marketing Award. I got Hugh Jackman to do a knitting video for us.
When was this?
3 years ago. He had a movie that we helped him promote. We just wrote it until the wave crested, if anybody surfs. So you just ride it out and then got to figure out what the next wave is. And the next, I feel like, like the Facebook stuff has kind of died. Instagram is obviously very popular. I think we're kind of at the tail end of that. So we're keeping our eyes open. Right now, I believe now that we wholesale, which means that we sell to a lot of yarn shops, I think that that's our sales force, and that we're really spending the next year or 2 years dedicated to, you had mentioned that growth, you want to create lots of happy employees. I want to Superman kind of the knitting industry and the yarn industry, and I want to create a stronger industry. And I want to do whatever I can. And I know it's a little arrogant and narcissistic to think that I have that power, but whatever I can do to get as many people knitting and to get as many people buying yarn and walking into yarn shops I think that really gives me a high and a buzz. And so I'm trying to do everything that I can, from even financial education to marketing education, to make stronger yarn shops so that our ecosystem is stronger and that it feeds itself, which then, even if we just as one of the main retailers, even if we maintain the same market share, I don't want to grow my market share, because I don't want to take away from other people. If we can grow the whole pond and we maintain the same percentage, then everybody wins.
They're trying to take away from you, don't you?
I know, but I don't care. It doesn't matter. And I live in my own little world, and I like to pretend that everybody likes me for me.
Who buys any of this? Do you buy that she doesn't want to take any more market share?
I really don't. There's so much room, and it's not a zero-sum game. It's just not.
Judging from this room, though, you're already hitting a lot of people.
But they didn't say, how many people have ever heard of Jimmy Beans?
But they've heard of yarn.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, no, I want to grow the market share of yarn and of hobby and DIY, but I don't want Jimmy Beans or our personal thing. I don't want to take business away from somebody else. I want you guys to spend more on all of us.
Do not try that at home. Do not try to grow a business without trying to take some business from your competition. That's all I can tell you. You with me that, Karen?
No, I actually am not. We're also similar to Laura. We're in an industry where there's plenty of room. And my feeling about competition is the more the better, because it raises awareness. It floats all the boats.
If you're in a growing industry like that, you can do that. If you're not, you have to take business from other people.
The percentage of people who get custom frames is...
There were 25,000 frame shops 15 years ago. Now there's 8,000. Industries dropped by about 30%. So in my business, if I don't figure out how to be better and make sure I continue to get more market share, then my business won't be there.
Yeah, but if you look at the math, look at it from a math perspective, you actually just did gain market share just through natural attrition. I'm a big fan of natural selection. So
I can see
all of
that.
those other shops just disappeared. And where did that...
All you have to do is just be better.
Just exist.
But they disappeared because the market shrunk. It used to be a $3 billion industry. Now it's probably a $2.2 billion. And part of it is just because baby boomers are not framing pictures like they used to.
Do we have any questions?
Just in the sake of keeping this thing going, if you've got an expanding business, you don't care about share. But if you've got a declining or stagnant business, the only way you grow or even stay the same is getting more share, right?
Yes and no. That's exactly where we are. Our industry is going through the exact same thing or a very similar thing. So our industry is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
Explain that, though. Are people knitting less and buying less yarn as a whole?
But people are just dying.
Like the knitters.
The knitters are dying.
Knitters are dying?
Knitters
Yeah.
tend to be older?
They're humans. Yeah. Yes.
There are more humans today than there were a week ago.
Yeah, but they're aging out. So
it's a baby boomer thing.
It is a baby boomer. So the baby
drove a
boomers
lot of
have
businesses.
just passed in August of 2016, past their prime spending years. So they're spending less. They're dying off. They're not being, literally dying off, and they're not being replaced. The millennials are, or whatever this youngest generation is, they are minimalists and they are very niche focused. And there's a ton of fragmentation. And so the buying habits are not the same, and then there's a glut of available product. So now any of us can go on Alibaba, any of us can go on Etsy, everybody, you can buy anything that you want from anybody basically in the world. So traditional retailers, we are losing market share to everyone. It's not just Church Mouse that's on Bainbridge Island, which if you've not visited, please tell Kit and John I said hi. They're really great, and it's a beautiful spot. But it's not them that we're losing market share to. It is the fragmented, it's the Etsy lady, and she sells $1,000 worth of stuff per year. Well, you take 100 of those, and that's one yarn shop that just went out of business. And I'm sure the framing is very similar. There's lots of DIY framing. Now people
not
are...
anymore. There's the baby boomers' kids are not framing pictures like the baby boomers did.
But to be more specific and answer your question, what we have done is we have actually taken a step back in terms of the things that we were, the primary things that we were selling, kind of the yarn, if you will, and needles and stuff, and we've just been inventing. I've been inventing I have a knitter's watch coming out. I've been patenting things. I made some knitting needles that have marks every 1 inch and patented that. So I've always taken an additive approach. Like, we don't discount things either. Instead, we charge more, but we give you things that make you feel like, you should pay more. So we've started inventing, like we're going to have toilet paper that says, Tosh is the new brand. Tosh is the shit. And then we're going to go to trade shows and we will, put our branded toilet paper, and we'll get toilet paper with little sheep on it or like a little knitting pattern.
You heard it here first.
Then instead of doing
Whether you like it or not.
Then instead of doing a knit along, we're going to do a shit along, and people can all knit the same pattern together on the toilet. We think it's going to be great, but we do stuff like that, which there is no competition. Nobody's ever done that before. I don't know why.
You're not taking that business away from anybody.
Exactly. Well, but I got to get creative because I don't go in other yarn shops because I don't want to see what other people are doing because I don't want to compete.
And I think that's the key, right? I think if you're going to not take market share, you have to evolve. Right. And so at Paralee Boyd, it's not a matter of don't go to your stylist. It's a matter of go to her to get your cuts and colors. Come to us for your maintenance.
You might not want to take it from your competition, but you are. And if you are successful growing your business, it's coming from you. So you might not like that idea, but that is what's going to happen because it's
offering more, and she's offering different stuff.
We have another question, and if you do, we need you to go to the microphone because we want the people who listen to the podcast to hear it.
As a young entrepreneur, it's so nice to have this energy here. Can you guys talk to me a little bit about your own personal experiences, both in each of your businesses, but personally? One, a time where it benefited you the most when the universe was teaching you patience. And secondly, a risk that you took that paid off beyond when your soul had that, okay, you know what, I'm just going to take this risk. And it could be personally, like I just wrote a book myself about my journey leaving law school and going to Mexico and Guatemala on a one-way ticket with $200.
That's the same as starting a business. You have a one-way ticket and you got $200. It's the exact same risk, and I think we all probably took it. And I think for me, I didn't even know I was taking it. It's really one foot in front of the other. And so it's not like I was taking a risk to say, hey, I'm going to open a $30 million company with all these people and have 5 offices. It's not like that, right? It's just, I'm going to do one job by myself. And then gradually it comes on. So I think the risk is tampered by that, for me anyway.
I think opening Paralee Boyd was a huge risk, right? There was not
You had had a successful career before that in corporate America.
I did, and I was doing well, and man, wow. But, I said, I think I can do it. And there were no associations where I could go to. There are no conferences where there are people taking walk-in only, collecting data, using engineering notes, using Kaizen to work in their salon. So for me, it was that risk, taking, $30,000 of my own money, finding a salon where a lady was, leaving her current location, taking that $30,000, turning it into my first location and seeing what happens next, handing out flyers, telling people about it. The other risk I took was shortly thereafter that, where I could either spend the money and pay rent, or I could have spent the money and done a series of radio commercials. And everybody around me, not being entrepreneurs, said, oh, pay your bill, pay your bill, pay your bill. But I thought if I bought the marketing, I'd be able to pay my bills for the rest of the year. And that's what happened. I took the risk. The risk question is all of us opening a business when you're in a society that says, get up, go to work, go home, have kids. That's when there's a science to it. But for any business owner, the risk is opening, and the patience comes in with how you interact with people and managing the expectations of people around you.
Quickly, Jay.
I don't think you have to be nuts to start a business, but it does help. And I will tell you that I'm not sure I ever did anything and thought about the risk involved. I just thought it was going to work. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's kind of I am. And I've done some stuff that didn't work and it cost me a lot of money. And I realized that optimism is the gift of the entrepreneur, and it's also the occupational hazard. And I've been on both sides of that. So I'm not sure that you pick entrepreneurship. I think it might pick you. And I meet lots of people that are talking about starting a business, and I call them entrepreneurs because they just talk about it and talk about it and talk about it for years. Entrepreneur bullshit, basically. Yeah. They're bullshitting themselves.
I thought that's what you were going for.
You need some knitting toilet paper.
Yes. Yeah. No, they like the idea of it. They want to tell all their friends about it. But at the end of the day, it's about signing a lease. It's about quitting your job. It's about not going. It means you have to go and do something about it. And
There's nobody to blame but you if it doesn't work.
I don't believe that opportunity knocks. I think it lurks. And I think that it's out there, and you have to, I'm sure you did it. You thought there was a market there and you jumped into it, and there was a market there and you made it work. And I think we're all in the same boat. And this idea of, follow your passion and the money will follow. Oh my God. I know lots of people that have gone broke. Passion's not enough. It's a critical part, but the math needs to work.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And be sure to keep an eye out for part 2 of our special live taping of the 21 Hats podcast at BlinkUX's Seattle headquarters. Next week, you'll hear our conversation with Brian Canlis, co-owner of the renowned Seattle restaurant Canlis. Brian tells us how he and his brother took over the third-generation business from his parents, how they reinvented the restaurant, and how things didn't go all that well, at least not initially. As always, this episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. And remember, if you liked what you heard here, tell your friends, subscribe, rate us, review us. You can follow us on Twitter at 21_hats and visit us at 21hats.com. Let us know if you have any questions or issues you'd like to hear our panel of fearless business owners address. See you next time.